Hey guys, Brenda Smith. I wanted to show you how I'm assembling my 2014 Hybrid December Daily album. I am using exclusively Just Jamie digital products that I printed out, and I've already worked quite a bit on the album, as you can see here. I'll go through that and show it with you in just a second. But I wanted to show you all my little setup here. I have some journal cards that I'm going to be including in between some of the pages. Over here, these are my background cards that I'm going to be laying the photos on top, as well as just some regular size journal cards that I've filled out. These are just little bits of word art that I'll be adding to my photos and the rest of the pages. These are labels to add my numbers onto, and then I have all my photos printed out in different sizes. And these are just scraps of paper that I'm going to be using to cover up back sides of cards and things like that. So I'll show you a little bit of that in a little bit, but first let's go through this first part of my album. So this entire album is hybrid. As you can see, I've printed up everything as separate layers, and I've been assembling and trying just to get a really thick, kind of chunky look to this album. So I think I've achieved that, and in fact I think I might have to do split this into 2 albums. So that's a little bit of a problem, I suppose, but oh well. This is the Santa. This one's from Just Jamie's December 2014 Storyteller line, but the I Do Believe in Santa word art that I stitched onto there is from her current Storyteller, so December 2015 Storyteller. This one is also from that. That's called Riley. The December Storyteller collection is called Riley. And I don't know if you can tell there, but the little word art up here says "Love You Always." So I have this journal card here that I mounted onto a 4x4 piece of paper, digital paper. And then the back side, because it was sticking up over the card, the back side I covered with just some of those scraps of extra paper like I told you. So I did that there. This is just kind of like the intentions why I'm doing this album. My typewriter was broken when I did this page, so I never wrote on these tags, but I'll definitely go back and add to that. I do try to do as much typing as I can in Photoshop, just because it's easier, like that's what this is. But I do also like using my typewriter for other things, just because I feel like it does have a more authentic look than just printing it off. But I took this and I cut it out with my silhouette. It's word art from Just Jamie, and then I stitched it. I didn't really glue it on except for stitching through it, so I like the little bit of dimension that it gives. There's this photo here, and it's hanging off the edge, as you can see. I've yet to cover this circle, but I do intend to with some sort of pattern paper. But on the other side, one of my favorite techniques to do is to add some paint. Just Jamie always has paint included in her Storyteller collections, digital paint, and I always like to try to add a little bit of digital paint to either my photos or my cards, just because I like the little bit of extra color that it gives. So these pictures I printed up at 3.5 inches by 5 inches, and they stick up quite a bit over the card, as you can see here. But, you know, I covered the back side with the paper and then put the label, and I think it turned out well. So this I printed up as a double page photo, obviously. I showed in my digital process for this album how I go about doing that, but I really like the effect. I still have to add some word art here to this one. And then another full page photo here Okay, so now what I'm going to be working on is I'm going to add to the back side of this. I'm going to start with day 17. So let's get to it. So because I'm gluing the cards back to back, I am approaching this album chronologically. So the next day that I'm working on is day 17. And I should actually clarify, it's not necessarily day 17. I am doing 25 memories of December 2014. So these are not necessarily chronological, and I actually ended up making some mistakes and placing some days where I didn't mean to, some pictures where I didn't mean to. So it's definitely out of order, but it's okay. I just decided to kind of relax my brain about it and just embrace it. So what I'm doing now is I took some of the digital paper that I printed out from Just Jamie and I glued it onto the back side of that picture is sticking up over the edge. So as you can see there, it's that aqua weathered wood grain. So that's on the back side of that photo there. And then you can see it peeking up over the photo on the opposite side, which is day 16. I am looking for a little bit of word art that I printed out, and I chose this one that has the phrase "the little things," and I wanted to pop it up with a little bit of foam dimensional adhesive. So I'm putting some on before adhering to the page. One of the themes that I've been carrying throughout this album is stitching through the numbers. So I take the card over to my sewing machine and stitch in plain white thread. I'm gluing the 17 card onto the back side of the 16 card, and I have a Tim Holtz hole punch that I am using for this album to get the holes in the proper placement for a 4x4 album. The 4x4 album that I am using is by We Are Memory Keepers, and I take that back. It's not We Are Memory Keepers. This one is Project Life Heidi Swap. I trimmed off the edge of the backside of that card because there was a little bit of white hanging off, so I trimmed it off. The other side of that 17 is a journal card, so now I'm moving on to memories 18 and 19. So as you can see on these cards that I've printed up, I've added a little bit of digital paint in Photoshop. Those paint files are painted by Jamie and then scanned in and turned into digital files. So I am pulling from the labels that I've printed up. I didn't necessarily plan for these labels which ones would go on which memory, which page, so I'm just kind of making it work. So I'm trying out the numbers here, and I decided that I didn't like them quite that high up on the picture because I thought what she was doing in the picture was an important part of the memory. So I scooted the label down, and the numbers are down as well. So then I am just finding a little bit of word art. I have this one that says I believe, and I want it to be a little bit higher up like the number stickers are, so I popped it up with some foam adhesive. On this side, it's one of the rare family photos that we have together. My husband and I work opposite schedules, so family time or family nights where we could spend time together were kind of rare, especially in this busy month of December, so this was an important memory to document. I decided on this circular green label. I believe this is from December 2014 Storyteller by Just Jamie, and I like how well the numbers fit on there, and I'm just going to add a little bit more word art. Of course, this one that says family is too perfect, so it'll be going on there. I'm popping it up with a little bit of dimensional adhesive as well. I pick up all my foam adhesive at my local craft store, Michael's or otherwise. So days 18 and 19 are finished. I stitched through the numbers. I've printed out these two journal cards that I typed on in Photoshop, and they will go in between days 18 and 19. So I am gluing the journal cards 3x4 in size. I'm gluing them back to back and punching holes in them so they can go in the album. Again, make sure you get the holes on the right side of the card so that they can go in your album properly. So I glued the back side of the journal card from day 17. I glued day 18 onto that. and I punch the holes. Now this is the one that I punched the holes in on the incorrect side. So I just found some stars that came with the package of thickers that I'm using for the numbers, and I put them over the holes on the journal card side, which was most noticeable. So now I'm going to start on days 20 and 21, or memories 20 and 21 rather. And I have these two cards that I'm using, and this photo of my daughter writing her present from Santa, her ATV, it's going to hang off the edge a little bit of that background paper there. So I will be gluing on some extra paper onto the back side of that photo. But first I picked a label that I had printed out and put it under the photo, and I just picked out a black rectangular label. Now I am going ahead and placing the numbers 20, and I am going to pick out a paper to go on the back side of that card in a minute. But right now I'm going to move on to day 21. This is my son with his little ATV ride-on, and he was so excited and rode around with a big smile on his face all day that day. So these are memories that I wanted to remember. So I pulled out this journal card that will be part of day 22 because I wanted to find a background paper that would go well with it. I picked out this green and blue stripe, and I'm going to glue it onto the back side of that photo of my son on his ATV, which is for day 21. And I just kind of set the paper there haphazardly. I could have measured and done it that way, but I just decided to kind of get it done in whatever manner was quickest at the moment, so that's what I ended up doing. And I just trimmed away the excess. So if you're one who is really conscious about not wasting any, then you probably don't want to do it this way. So if you plan on stitching through your numbers or any other part of your pages like I did, you don't want to glue on the back sides until you have done your stitching. So I almost did it just there, but then I remembered to finish the other side first, so then I could stitch on it, and then the back side, the underside of the stitching wouldn't come through on the opposite page. So I finished up with just a blue diagonal stripe label that was from Just Jamie's December 2014 Storyteller Collection, and just my numbers, the 21. And those numbers are from American Crafts. They're thickers, and these are from the Chamel Christmas line. I don't remember what the line is called, but they're from this year, December 2015's Chamel Christmas line. So what you don't see me doing off camera here is I have chosen a digital paper to go on the back side of that photo of my daughter and her ATV, so I just trimmed it. I will show you later on in the video what I chose for the backside paper there. But as of now, I found a little word art that I wanted to go on this day 21, so I got out my foam dimensional adhesive and added it to this, and then I'm going to take those and stitch them in a little bit. One of the things that I do want to say about the foam dimensional adhesive is it is what made my album so thick. That's kind of what I wanted from the very beginning. That's what I decided I wanted to do with this album. But now I have one very full album at the end, and I am going to keep it in just one album. I thought perhaps I would have to split it to two, but I'm going to keep it to one. But nearing the end of the last few pages, it's hard to leaf through them and look at them just because the binding rings are so full of cards. So if you are looking to not have it be that full, then you might want to consider using less dimensional adhesive. But in my case, I'm just going to leave it and not worry about it. And I like the idea of it being one album as opposed to splitting it into two albums. So right now you see me moving on to work on days 22 and 23. And originally I had planned to have that other journal card that we first saw to be on the back side to be day 22. But this is kind of one of those mistakes that I had mentioned earlier where I mixed up some pictures. So I just wasn't really paying attention and I put these on the wrong day. These should have been day 24. or Memory 24, but like I said, I had already decided not to worry about my album being chronological, so the fact that these pictures weren't necessarily day 22 is fine with me. And they were memories nonetheless, and I wanted to document them, so I attributed them a number, and here they are in my album. So I glued a label, another rectangular label, onto this. I do believe this is from the December 2015 Storyteller Riley collection, and then just put my number, the number 22, and then over here on this side you can see there the paint treatment that I added to the background paper before printing it out. This is a picture of me wrapping the presents in the dark on Christmas Eve. I had yet to wrap our presents and our power went out. So yeah, that was a little bit of a challenge, but a memory nonetheless. So I am going through and decorating the back sides of some of the papers that are the back sides of the photos that hang over the edges. So that picture was the full page spread of my kids visiting Santa on our train trip to the North Pole, and they had such a good time there, so I wanted to make it a full page spread with today's 16, and I ended up putting just a little thing that said Sweet Life, a little word art from the December 2014 Storyteller collection. Now I'm going to move on to gluing the cards back to back. So I took day 21 and I am going to glue it onto day 22. And then I have this little bit of the green striped paper that is going to be the backing of that photo that hangs above the edge. And I decided that I liked this label with this word art, so I'm going to go ahead and glue those onto that paper. I ended up needing to trim this journal card just a little bit. It was a little bit too wide and hung over the edge too much, so I trimmed it up before adhering it. And now I am punching the holes for those two cards. Sometimes this can be a difficult process because I get too much of the dimensional stuff right in the area where the holes should be punched. But eventually I am usually able to figure it out. So as is the case with this one, I figured it out. These are the journal cards that I had to go in between those 2 days, day 22 and 23. I journaled on them in Photoshop and then printed them out. So now I'm going forth with that journal card that I had originally planned being on the back side of the page before. But it works just as well here. This is when we went to the street in our little area that has all of the Christmas lights and decorations. That's renowned across town for that. So we went to ours. It's called Candy Cane Lane. And the kids were at such a perfect age for this. They were 4 and 2. And they were going around and hugging all the inflatable decorations. So definitely a special memory for us and something I want to remember when they're much older. So it got its full page spread here. And now working off camera, sorry, I need to kind of get the hang of this tripod that I'm using, but I am working on day 25. Now I made this more than just a one-page spread because I had more photos than I had space for. So right now this is day 25, which is a full page photo. I mean, a full spread photo. So it's two different cards, 4x4 cards. So it's 8x4. And then I got some word art, and I just glued it onto that right side of day 25. Now you can't really see me doing this, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I'm gluing a photo onto another card for day 25 on the back side. It's a photo of my kids running out to see their presents. I had planted myself in the living room before they came out and had my DSLR ready and snapped a couple photos of them, and I think it's just the cutest responses from them, and you can see their excitement. So I definitely wanted to include this particular photo of them. So I went ahead and added it, and that I'm just going to add a piece of word art that I think looks good on there, and I added it again with dimensional adhesive. I toyed around with adding something to this side, but I just didn't like the look of anything that I added. So for now, it's going to be plain until I can come up with something, or maybe I won't come up with anything. On the other side of this picture from Christmas Day, I have a journal card that I have printed out, and I am going to go ahead and stitch through the love there, the top of the love, just because I wanted to add a little bit of machine stitching to it. For the very last page of my album, I have this card, and it says, "Make it a December to remember." So I wanted that just to be my closing remarks. I had thought about doing a summary, but just decided against it. So I am punching all the remaining holes in my cards, and then my album is complete. I wanted to go ahead and show you the finished pages for day 17. This is 18 with the journal card, 19 with its corresponding journal card, 20, and 21, 22, 23, 24, and this is day 25, these next couple pages. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you will watch my other videos to see how I made this in Photoshop.